I've always believed if you scratch the thin veneer of civilization on any of us, we're all savages.
The Kiss of Night fits perfectly under the banner of the Pain, Power, Pleasure podcast. All that stuff to the side, let me say again, welcome Mark Wukas.
And not to give away any plot spoiler, but Sergeant Foley, the police officer, suffers a similar descent from his days in as a young Catholic to become a dirty cop for a while. So, and why do we do these things? We do it, that's kind of the question I ask in my book. What is it that that prompts this sort of thing in us? And I went to a play once. It was about Argentina during the colonels, and this one guy who is a torturer of political prisoners. And the play basically centers on the conversation between the torturer and the tortured. And there was a Q&A after the play, and I stayed for it, and I said, how can you get yourself into a place where you think it's okay to torture people, for your role in this play? And he said, oh, it's easy. He said, all I had to do was imagine that this man was a threat to my family, and I would have been willing to do anything to this guy to protect my family. And that was pretty damn powerful.
And in the book, again, don't want to give it away. I love the tension between Foley and Will. I love that, Will comes into this very liberal-minded. He comes into this situation thinking, you and I talked about this when we saw each other in Chicago. We talked about this cosmic universal fight, good and evil.
Sure.
And they get into this conversation in many ways, and some of their arguments in the book. And you've already explained again, so explain who Foley is again.
He's a homicide detective on the north side.
Homicide detective on the north side who sits in an office mostly, and Will goes into that police office, and this is where he is trying to find information for the stories that he writes. And when the two of them come together, there's an ideological fight constantly going on. And like you said, Will goes from being, let's call him clean cut and naive to toward the back end of the story, participating, giving himself in to a murder.
Yeah.
And he had, I guess we talk about means, motive, and opportunity. He had in his mind a good reason for doing what he did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But we can all rationalize
that's correct.
That kind of thing. And remember that there are three major conversations between the reporter and the police sergeant in the book. And the first one, the cop says, "Are you for or against the death penalty?" And he says, "I'm against. What if you're wrong?" And that changes dangerously during the course of the book, where he's willing to, participate in something that he really shouldn't be participating in.
Yeah. I'm reminded, Mark, of being at Quigley, and for the first time hearing the term euthanasia. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I thought we were talking about youth in Asia.
In Asia, yeah.
I'm sure I wasn't the only one. We're talking about mercy killing, right? But But the conversation between the two of them made me think of euthanasia. It made me think of a particular kind of mercy killing. And I can't remember which story it is, but there's, I believe there's a place in their conversations where there's the question of, would you rather let somebody do this to innocent people or get rid of that person? And that is that's kind of like the ongoing
That's
conversation.
always the issue.
That's always the issue. You know, are we going to get rid of the bad guy, or let the bad person rather continue to contaminate? And are we going to risk that this person is going to do what they are more than likely going to do? Are we going to let that happen? Because if we do, then we're part of it.
Well, keep in mind that we're often quick to judge. And so these bad people, what we often lack in news stories that just focus on the deed, but not the context of what in this person's life led him to commit this act, and sometimes it's mental illness, sometimes it's, again, trying to protect my family, sometimes it's just whatever kind of ridiculous beef is out there. uh and yet people take it seriously. And you'll love this. I had a realtor on the South Side tell me a couple of years ago that the most dangerous intersection on the South Side is 79th and Western
I remember you telling me that.
because of the McDonald's there. So, and 79th and Western is where Butch and I went to high school. I said, what is driving this? I mean, is it gang turf wars? And he says, no, 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 no. It's Facebook beef. And I'm like, what? And he said that, yeah, if I read on Facebook that you think my girlfriend is ugly, I'm going to cap you. I thought, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you confirm this? I mean, it just seems so stupid.
Whether or not the girlfriend is ugly, or if it's
or whether the person who said it deserves to be shot in a drive-by. I mean, this is playing into the worst
right.
ethnic stereotypes, and just feeds white fear of the black nation. And it's so stupid. It is so stupid.
One of the things that I love about your book, man, is it took me back to, you mentioned Google. It took me back to pre-internet days. It took me back to an era of
Sure.
journalism, an era of reporting. And in Chicago, when I was a little boy, my father used to send me to get both the Sun-Times and the Tribune. He had different reasons for wanting to read one or the other. And there was a morning and there was an afternoon or evening version of both of them. I mean, it was that much newspaper going around back then. And as I was reading Will talk about his challenges, now Will is a beat reporter and he works for a newspaper,
It
but
works for a news service.
excuse me.
It's a wire service. That's a little different.
He works for a news service, but there's tension between his type of journalist and the people with the cameras. It's the people, yeah. So the people, because they're the celebrities, the ones that get to go on TV are celebrities, and they're paid more. There's more glory. Nobody ever sees Will,
and they work less.
Right? And so in that challenge, the way you write it out in the book, now I can look back and I can see the potential, the rise of a different kind of media, because ultimately journalism was going to become faster. It was going to become broader. It was going to become
shallower.
More. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's just like, and that goes for media, I think, in general. I think anybody can be a journalist. And I don't want to put down.
Well, I think what you mean is that with the internet has not lived up to its potential. And we all thought that, hey, this is great, free access to information and all
Right.
that. But
Right.
the dark side is that any jackass who's got a computer and an ISP can go online and just start spouting the craziest shit.
Yep.
And just all this talking all this smack isn't doing anybody any good.
I agree.
And so and what happens now is that I think in our American culture today, the truth is dead, that there are so many news sources and people who I'm going to post on my my account on Instagram or whatever, and like, so you don't know who to believe anymore. And then if you don't like something, you call it fake news
Right.
because it doesn't make you look good,
Right.
when in fact it might be absolutely true, but of course deny everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got to have a good shit detector now, and that's what I used to teach my students. You're being bombarded. How do you sort all this out?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
Terrible.
It's tough. I don't know that you answered the second part of the same question. We talked about what the book was about literally, but what is the book about from a
It's
philosophical standpoint?
remember I was talking about how both main characters sort of start in their own respective positions of, like, the classics major and the kid growing up Catholic, and how they both descend into they both flirt with savagery and see it around them, and how they respond to that savagery.